I'm Rob Reed and welcome to our first videocast, where myself and the dual artistic director of the Liverpool and Oxford Film Festivals, Al Bailey, will be discussing the pick of this year's Academy nominations for Best Short Films within the live and documentary categories. Directed by Ben Proudfoot and Chris Bowers, the short documentary centres on composer Chris Bowers' family history amid conversations with his grandfather. Thoughts on this one?
I really love this one, personally. Very stylistic, but I think what I really found engaging about it was the positivity of it. Obviously, we're seeing a lot of Black Lives Matter movements pieces, which is great. But what I took from this was it was really a self-worth success story.
Absolutely.
And I just love that about it, and I just think I want to see more of it, rather than there's obviously going to be negative aspects to some of these stories which people are going to document, which is great and needs to be done. But what I really took from this was the love and being inspired by another generation.
Yeah, like it had there was a bit of a gloss to it, but it kind of, in a nice way, like it had a slight haziness to it. I thought the shots of the grandfather working at his dry cleaners were beautiful, and the way they'd done all that. The only thing I found a bit distancing was the close-ups to camera between the two of them when they were obviously having a conversation in the room, but I didn't get really any real sense that they were having that conversation. I just found it a little bit like they'd obviously, things like Moonlight and If Beale Street Could Talk, Barry Jenkins has the same device, but I think it works great in a drama. I wasn't so sure. I found it a little bit of a distancing tool in a documentary.
I think maybe it put you off more than it did me, in terms of I was just really into the story. There were so many good messages in there that are a bit of a rarity in documentary film at the minute, and also the rarity 13 minutes long, which again makes me jump for joy as a festival
ideal
program where it's we are obsessed. Certainly the Academy seem to be obsessed, seem to be going for this 25, 30, 35 minute mark, which is fine. But it is a big investment for short film in terms of the viewer, and so I just thought it was perfectly pitched, and my favourite, as we've already stated.
Directed by Farah Nabulsi, the present focuses on a father and daughter in the West Bank trying to buy a wedding anniversary gift.
We basically see Salam Bakri, who plays the father. For me, a little bit Eurocamp Brochure dad straight away. Kind of, for me, the acting wasn't strong. For me, it's like we mentioned, it's a world we're not used to. So for that aspect, that's for me where the positivity of the film gave me a real kind of insight into something.
Absolutely.
But unfortunately, it was a 20-odd minute story that could have been told quite easily, and we say this so many times, could be told in 5 to 6 minutes. And a lot of short films do fall into that bracket, and this was certainly one of them. I get the concept of it again. I love the simplicity of it, but again, when it's so simple, that should, for a filmmaker, surely that should say, well, it needs to be concise. And it was very ponderous. And when something's that ponderous, the acting has to be so on point and delivered in such a fashion. And unfortunately for this occasion, it wasn't.
Directed by Anthony Giacchino and the winner of the Academy Award for Best Documentary Short, Colette follows a former French resistance member as she travels to Germany for the first time in 74 years.
The director's obviously got past experience in history docs. He did a doc called Camden 28 back in 2007, which was about the Vietnam protesters. He's also done a couple of pieces on the Kennedy assassination. So you can tell there's sporadic kind of factual information that I actually found really interesting, dispersed kind of in between the segments. But he's tried to obviously put a personal touch on this one, which I'm all for. The dynamics of the two central characters of Colette, the 90-year-old ex-resistance fighter, and the young student, the young history student, and it's their journey really. But I think what I got from it was more of a I don't want to say family dynamics, it's almost like a relationship dynamics. There was obviously an issue with Colette's relationship with her mother. I took away from it that, there's a passage where she states that her mother said, I wish you'd have died rather than your brother. So obviously there's something very personal that hangs within her there, and that comes across really strongly on screen. So there's one scene in particular where she visits the Nordhausen camp, obviously the closest town or village next to it,
Yeah.
and she's welcomed by the mayor, and they're having a meal, and her reaction to the mayor starting to speak, I mean, obviously I don't want to give away too much, it was so fiercely aggressive almost.
Colette won the best documentary short, didn't
Yeah,
it?
so this is the winner. Whether we agree with it or not, you'll find out later as we go through the selection that we've picked. We've picked 3 of the 5 just for time constraints, and obviously we're going to touch on the other 2 in later programs. But yeah, for me overall, I think it was made with great intention. I think it was as honest as these kind of stories can be in terms of creating this dynamic for the audience to be interested in. But there was just a little bit of confusion with the relationships and the motives for making the doc, and that's where it fell down for me. Certainly, you know, if we're talking Oscar nomination and Oscar win here, you know, we're going to be overly critical probably in comparison to other short docs that are out there that I get to see 12 months of the year.
Directed by Anders Hammer, this fly-on-the-wall short documentary focuses on some of the main events during the 2019 and 2020 Hong Kong protests.
Very raw, very in your face, which I love in a documentary. You know, we're very stylized now when we see these submissions come in, and it, you know, understandably it's what the viewer's now been used to on platforms, etc. But this was very gritty.
Street level, isn't it? Yeah, visceral.
Yeah.
I mean, he's because I noticed that he operated as well, so he was in the thick of it with his camera.
Yeah, so. And like we say, that should be applauded. It was very chaotic right from the get-go, which kind of gets you in the right mindset, but at the same time, that chaos, unfortunately, from my opinion, gets in the way of what the agenda and motive of the documentary is and what it's trying to say. It's obviously very much showing the protesters' side, which is fine. So there's almost no balance really in terms of what I would probably recommend to people that are going to attempt to watch this is maybe look into the politics of it all before you watch.
Yeah. Because
trying to work that out in such chaos, it's purposely made, I think, from the filmmaker's point of view, to put you in at the thick end of it. And,
absolutely.
And have you almost in the protest, some will say riots as you're watching it. But trying to work out what the politics are and what the motives are of people without any kind of pre-research, for me, spoiled the viewing a little bit, and then it made me go, then look at the politics of well. But again, it wasn't that. To me, I was watching it, trying to judge it on face value, showing them with a lack of intelligence. So it's almost stupidity. These are students; they don't really know what they're doing. That was what I was getting from it.
Yeah, purely kind of driven by anger, really, a lot of it, and quite a lot of, you know, very erratic behaviour as well. Like you said, it opened with a thing, them kind of saying they want to be peaceful protests, and then the next cut, which is obviously, you know, the filmmaker's chosen, is them setting fire to a bank. So
and trying to understand that anger if you're not fully aware of the politics, straight away makes you not get in their corner almost from an audience point of view. So I found it similar to the Colette thing with the dynamics of the relationship and trying to believe that. I was left very confused with what am I taking from this? Whose side am I on with any piece, whether it be documentary or narrative? We should have a clear message. I mean, so first rule of, you know, kind of telling a story, don't bore and don't confuse. To me, both those documentaries, for different reasons, left me slightly confused as a viewer. And that's where, for me, again, unfortunately, it fell down.
Directed by Trevon Free and Martin Desmond Rose, Two Distant Strangers is about a man trying to get home to his dog and gets stuck in a deadly time loop with a racist cop. It won the Academy Award for Best Live Action Short.
Obviously, what we're looking for in both categories, we're looking for the next top directors, in my opinion. That's what short films should be about. That's how I look at it from a film festival programme point of view. Unfortunately for me, when I'm watching, certainly with this one, it was, you know, it was solidly made. What the director's going to now go and make, which is what I always look for in short film. What it left me with really was quite a pessimistic outlook with the Concerto documentary. Was very positive, trying to take the negative and turn it into a positive. This was quite a pessimistic outlook, which I fully understand and why someone would want to make it. But for me, giving it the Oscar nod and the Oscar win, I was left a bit gasping, really, how of 12 months of short film, knowing what's out there.
Yeah.
Obviously, it gets very narrowed down. It has to be an Oscar qualifying festival. Then majority has to win at a certain festival to get looked at. So I get that it's filtered down, but I just wish it would be so much more broader when we're talking about, you know, an Academy Award, because we are looking for those next big directors, and this should be the pinnacle of it.
Directed by Doug Rowland, this short drama is about the unlikely connection between a young man in need and a deaf-blind man over the course of one evening. So thoughts on Feeling Through?
I was left again with that same feeling that we get so many days in, days out of. This could be told so much quicker, and it's hard to get out of that mindset when you're kind of watching something, because you kind of watch so much as a programmer. It was very well put together. I think the writing around a disability is very, very common in short film. I don't want to say it's an easy vehicle, but it's obviously a vehicle that is used a lot. So again, you're wanting that originality, and that's what I was left with the Two Distant Strangers things. A very different feel of, in terms of, I've kind of seen this before. It was sweet, romanticised. I know Robert Taranga, who played Artie, is obviously deaf and blind in real life. So that gave it that realism. But there was an awful lot of romance with it. And I don't know whether I like to think I'm a romantic guy, Rob. But I don't know whether I would allow almost my belief systems with a lot of the aspects of it. And it's an 18-minute runtime again. So we're left with this filling in of this romanticism that I think there's one moment of kind of slight harshness where he steals $5 or whatever it was from him. And that was the first believable thing in it. And again, we say enough of it, but it comes back to that runtime. Because to me, when you're watching these films, it's obvious, but I think that's because we get to watch so much, and as a filmmaker, you're so embroiled in what you're making. I don't want to take that out, I don't want to take that. It's a very common trait that, unfortunately, a lot of these films tend to have. But I just feel if it had have done that, it would have been way more poetic in what it was trying to say. So
we've had 6 films from 2 different categories today. What would be your pick?
No, I think that's fairly obvious. A Concerto is a Conversation for me, just purely from a filmmaker perspective and a programming perspective as well. For a festival, it just had everything in it. What a short documentary, but it's not really fair to kind of compare narrative to documentary, but I would have to say that hands down.
Join us next time as we not only look at the best music videos of the last 12 months, but also discuss LIVIFF's brand new Music Raw initiative, where the best musical talents out there are introduced to the cream of indie music videos directors.